Welcome to Practical Sailor's top 10 list of forbidden items on sailboats. Some of these are superstitious, some are stupid, some are illegal in certain situations, and some can burn your boat down while you're asleep. Today we're counting down the top 10 forbidden items to bring on a sailboat. To be clear, there's no official marine police force that's going to board your boat, find a banana, and drag you away in deck shoes. But some things just don't belong on sailboats. Some of them are bad luck, some of them are bad manners, some of them are bad maintenance, and some are bad enough that your insurance company may one day look at the ashes and say, interesting choice. So let's get into it. The top 10 things you should never bring on a sailboat. Number 10, bananas. Yes, we're starting with the classic, bananas on boats. This is one of the oldest sailor superstitions, and nobody fully agrees on where this thing came from. Maybe banana boats had dangerous passages. Maybe bananas brought bugs. Maybe sailors just needed something to blame and the banana was standing there looking suspicious. Are bananas actually dangerous? No, not unless you're in Mario Kart. Unless you're on a racing boat with a very superstitious skipper, in which case the banana might be safer than you are. Still, every good forbidden list needs at least one item that sounds like it came from a pirate with a head injury. So number 10 is bananas. Number 9, glassware. Wine glasses, beer bottles, glass mugs, mason jars, anything fragile and sharp that seems normal in a house and becomes a tiny weapon factory on a boat. Sailboats move, they heel, roll, slam, and get waked by powerboats named things like Liquid Asset or the USS Unnecessary. Eventually, glass is going to test gravity. On land, broken glass is annoying and your toddler will try to run through it. On a boat, it's a barefoot treasure hunt from hell. It gets into the cockpit drains, the bilges, the non-skid, under the floorboards, and dark corners where all your 10mm sockets are hiding. Use stainless, use acrylic, use plastic, use insulated tumblers. Use cans instead of bottles when you can. Use anything that bounces instead of explodes. Also a side hack, never put your Yeti cup right next to your compass. It'll quickly deviate you by up to 10 degrees. Ask me how I know. Number 8. Cardboard boxes. Cardboard is not storage. Cardboard is a shipping material that got invited aboard and started a damp little civilization in your locker. It absorbs moisture, it collapses, it grows mildew, it stains things, it falls apart, and worse, it can become a corrugated bug hotel. Cockroaches hide in the folds in the glue. Mice can nest in it. Some bugs can feed on the starches in the glue of the cardboard. And damp boat air, a dark locker, a 6-month neglect period, and suddenly your spare parts box has become its own little ecosystem. Use plastic bins, labeled containers, dry bags, mesh bags, or proper tool rolls. The box your parts came in is a shipping thing, not a marine storage thing. Cardboard on a sailboat is basically a bed and breakfast for things with too many legs. Number 7, untinned DC wiring. Now we're getting into the fun stuff that actually costs you money. This feels like a smart place to save money sometimes. Marine grade tinned copper wire costs more. Regular copper wire is cheaper, and at first, the regular wire works, but it's a trap. Boats are damp and salty and vibrating little corrosion factories. Untinned copper wire can corrode inside the insulation of the wire. You may not see it from the outside, but months later, when something sort of stops working and you start stripping the wire, instead of clean copper, as you strip insulation, you find the wires turned black. So you cut back another inch, still black. Another inch, still black. Now the wire you're working on is too short to reach its terminal. Your head is jammed under a quarter berth, one screw is rolled into the bilge, and you're considering selling the boat and taking up bird watching. Tinned copper wire resists corrosion better. It costs more up front, but on a boat, cheap wire often becomes expensive wire a little bit later. This matters most in bilges and lockers, lazarettes, mast wiring, behind panels, and anywhere that's damp or hard to access, which is basically everywhere. Number 6 of things not to bring on a boat automotive and household electrical gear, extension cords, power bars, cheap clip-on battery chargers, automotive terminals, bargain fuse holders, hardware store switches, anything designed for your garage or basement or your car that somehow ended up responsible for your boat's electrical well-being. A boat is not a house. A boat is not a car. A boat vibrates and flexes and leaks and sweats, corrodes, and sits unattended forever in the damp air. That indoor power bar at the nav station was not designed to live in a damp cabin. That extension cord under a cushion was not meant to become a permanent shore power infrastructure part. That cheap battery charger with the alligator clips was not designed to be a long-term onboard charging system. And those alligator clips, they're fine for waking up a lawn tractor in your driveway, but on a boat, clips loosen, corrode, fall off, and spark. Temporary equipment becomes permanent because, hey, it worked last weekend and nothing exploded. An alligator clip is not a marine terminal. It's a spring-loaded suggestion at best. Use proper marine chargers, proper shore power gear, dry connections, correct fusing, ring terminals, strain relief on all the wires, don't forget that one. Heat shrink everything. Use good terminal blocks, bus bars, and parts that are actually made for the marine environment. Your boat is not a basement with a mast. Number 5, wire nuts and morettes. There are those twist-on connectors that you see in house wiring. They work in houses. They have their place. We're not declaring war on electricians, but on a boat, they are not your friend. There will still be that one guy in the comments of this video that screams witchcraft and that he's had wire nuts on his boat for 73 years and nothing's ever gone wrong. And sure, but you can drive a car with your feet. It doesn't make it a good idea. A sailboat is damp and salty and vibrating. Wires move around, panels flex, lockers get wet. Connections need to be secure, corrosion resistant, and protected. Wire nuts are not what you want feeding your bilge pump or your cabin or nav lights, your instruments, or that mystery circuit labeled "Do Not Touch" in fading masking tape. Wire nuts can get loose over time. They corrode. They can create intermittent faults. And they're often part of a larger crime scene involving household wire, electrical tape, and someone saying, "It was like that when I bought it." Use proper marine crimp connectors. Use ring terminals, terminal blocks, bus bars, adhesive-lined heat shrink, and strain relief. Again, we always forget strain relief. A good connection is not just electrically connected. It's mechanically supported. If you find wire nuts on your boat, don't panic, but they are a clue. Once you find one, you should probably look for its friends. Wire nuts belong in your basement ceiling, not in a wet locker beside your bilge pump and 40 years of regret. And the number 4 item to not bring on your sailboat, aerosol sunscreen. This one doesn't sound serious until someone sprays it all over your cockpit, and the deck becomes a skating rink. Aerosol sunscreens get everywhere. It lands on cushions and gel coat, non-skid, canvas, vinyl, on the handrails, on your wheel, on your lines, and every surface that you would prefer not be greasy. Sunscreen is important. Skin protection matters. Nobody's arguing against sunscreen, but aerosol spray on a sailboat is a menace. Use lotion, use sticks, put it on before you get on the boat. Apply it carefully. Keep it off the deck and the cushions and lines and the wheel, because once aerosol sunscreen gets on a boat surface, everything feels faintly greasy forever. It's like someone buttered the cockpit. And on a sailboat, slippery is not funny. Number 3, portable propane or fuel burning heaters. Now we're getting pretty serious. A boat cabin is a small enclosed space. Combustion consumes oxygen. Fuel burning appliances can produce carbon monoxide. Open flames increase fire risk. Some heaters create condensation, and boats are full of fabric and wood, wiring, fuel, batteries, cushions, and awkward escape routes. This is not a great recipe. Carbon monoxide is a big one. You can't see it, you can't smell it, and by the time you realize something's wrong, you may not be in good shape to fix it. If your boat has any fuel-burning appliance, you need working carbon monoxide detectors aboard, not the one from 2003 with a dead battery and a sun-faded sticker. A proper working CO detector. Go buy one today. If you want heat on board, the safer answer is probably a properly installed marine heating system, used as designed with ventilation, exhaust routing, and safety equipment taken seriously. I know people use portable heaters. I know people get away with it all the time. People get away with dumb things right up until they don't. Your cabin should not be heated by something that also appears in ice fishing accident reports. One old school cruiser trick is to hang a kerosene lamp above the table, or better yet, mount it to the bulkhead with heat shielding. These lamps throw off just enough heat to be warm. Number 2 item that you should not bring on a sailboat: dark-soled shoes. After carbon monoxide, this might seem less dramatic, but if you've ever cleaned black scuff marks off a white deck, you understand why this is in this list. Dark-soled shoes can leave marks all over your gel coat, cockpit sole, deck non-skid, cabin soles, anywhere else that someone decides to walk while wearing the official footwear of deck vandalism. It's not unusually dangerous. It's not unusually expensive. It's just deeply annoying. And boats are already a maintenance machine. They already demand time, money, knuckles, patience, and occasional dignity. They don't also need someone arriving on board with shoes that autograph every surface in black rubber. This is why boat shoes exist. This is why non-marking soles exist. A boat guest asks, "Are these shoes okay before they get on?" That's the proper way to do it. A dangerous boat guest shows up in black-soled work boots carrying red wine, glass bottles, aerosol sunscreen, and a cardboard box full of bananas. And the number 1 item that you should never bring on a sailboat is unfused wires connected directly to the battery. Boring, right? But this is the final boss. A battery can deliver a huge amount of current in a short circuit. If you connect a wire directly to the battery with no fuse or breaker near the source, then the wire itself becomes the fuse. And when a wire becomes a fuse, it doesn't gently resign when it goes away. It gets hot, it melts its insulation, it damages every wire near it, it smokes, and it can start a fire. This happens because small circuits get added over the years: a bilge pump wire, the stereo memory wire, a battery monitor wire, a solar controller wire, USB charger that you needed at the last minute, or a cabin light. A mystery red wire that just disappears behind a panel and nobody knows what it does. Each one seems small, so people convince themselves that it doesn't really need protection. But the battery doesn't care how big the wire is. If that wire shorts, the battery will feed it until something stops the current. You want that something to be the properly sized fuse or breaker, not a glowing piece of copper buried behind your SETI. Side note, do you know what size fuse your bilge pump calls for? Mine needs a 7.5, but you don't think that it should be that low, do you? If the bilge pump sucks up, let's say, a zip tie or a clipping from some wiring job that you did, it jams the impeller. The pump won't know, and it'll keep sucking more and more power over its wiring to free the shaft until something breaks. If you jammed a 10 or 15 amp fuse in there, guess what breaks? Probably the wire. Every wire connected to the battery or major power source should have an appropriate overcurrent protection as close to the source as practical. Use the right wire size. Use the right fuse or breaker. Use proper terminals. Label everything. Remove abandoned wiring. The wire should not be the weak link. The fuse should be the weak link. That's the whole point. And that's our Practical Sailor top 10 list of forbidden items to bring on your sailboat. What are your don't bring that on my boat items? What did we miss? Leave a comment and let us know. Let's make sailing safer for everyone. And on that note, did you see this article Ray Vill wrote on the website that's called 7 Common Boat Problems You Can't Ignore and How to Fix Them? This is a marine surveyor with nearly 2 decades of experience revealing the reoccurring and entirely avoidable maintenance failures that kill resale value and put crews at risk. A great read if you have a minute. I'll leave a link in the description for you. While you're here, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us out, but also it lets YouTube know that you like sailboat videos, so it'll show you more of them. How cool is that? And hit subscribe so I can see you again next time.